All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and this could be quite the shit show. Only because I'm not dropping my son off at UVA, and normally I wouldn't connect from here, but I did want to, at least for this first video, be here to introduce Chan. I'm gonna tout him a little bit over the next 3 or 4 minutes, then essentially just let him kind of take it away. As you guys know, part of my goal in true DFS is just kind of let you guys know how I play. And part of how I play is letting you guys know who I listen to and who I consider the greatest experts out there, especially in sports where I feel that I don't know all that much. And just so you guys know, I mean, DFS Chan, when he was doing his videos for RotoWire, was one of my main sources of substantive fundamental content. And I use that in part to help, develop the projections you guys know and love, hopefully. So when, people keep asking me, Eric, you can do video, Eric, you do video, you're doing so well. I'm like, I just don't feel equipped to talk about the actual game, so to speak. So when I found out that DFS Chan was somewhat available, I kind of jumped at the chance. He doesn't play DFS full time, and I'll let him go into more of that if he wants, but he plays enough of it to know more than 99% of the people. Now, with respect to the level of content he's going to provide, just like everything else, guys, it's really up to you. In other words, and I talk about this when I do my content, when I do my videos, because you guys have been so good with your questions and your feedback and asking intelligent things and being very inquisitive, it allows me to provide kind of the fun content that I want to provide. So I think it's the same as when Chan starts doing his videos himself, which is going to be pretty quickly, is that if he does videos and then you submit comments in the Discord or in YouTube, oh my God, he told me to play Live Sandbox and they lost. What the hell is this? Or I can't believe I followed him, or who do you like here, whatever. Then he's just he's gonna be very similar. But if you ask the types of questions that I feel as though you've become very familiar with, very inquisitive and learning about it, DFS Chan, he's a good communicator, he's a good teacher, and I think whatever level of input you kind of seek from him, he's going to end up providing. So that's kind of up to you. With respect to, again, we're starting off today with what we're going to be doing today is a review of both of the 2-game slates from the playoffs. And the reason why I presume that there are 2 different slates is because one might be 2 out of 3, one might be 3 out of 5, but I'll let him talk about that. And I might have a couple of questions along the way, but I don't want the internet to kind of get in the way. I think you guys are I'm sharing my projection screen with you, but that's just something as background. I really want DFS Chan to kind of lead this whole thing. So why don't you just take it away, talk to me about the slates, and I'll try to chime in, and hopefully the lag doesn't bury us.
Yeah, sounds good, Eric. Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, my name is DFS Chan, and I've been doing League of Legends DFS videos for a while now, and some of you guys may know me from RotoWire, but now that I'm honored to join Eric here at True DFS and be a guest expert here for this video, and I look forward to helping you guys and providing tools to give you the edge to be able to profit from these DFS slates. So the first slate, I'll go into a little details. So since Eric has the LCK projections here on the screen, I'll start with the LCK 2-game slate here. So obviously that starts here at 4 a.m. Eastern time, and it is a one-day slate compared to the other like LPL slates and other stuff. The reason is that the LCK is still in the last week of the regular season. It hasn't quite reached the playoff time yet, unlike other major regions. So we still have one more week. So some of these games really can be meaningless. For some of these teams, actually most of these teams, because in the LCK, I posted this in the Discord channel, but for most of the teams, it's meaningless because all 6 teams that are going to the playoffs have been finalized. it's really just a matter of the playoff seeding at this point. For those 6 teams. So those 6 teams have a lot to play for still for seeding purposes, because those seedings matter when it comes to qualifying for the playoffs and the Worlds. As you know, the Worlds is the biggest, League of Legends tournament that will come in 3 months or so. So, but yeah, so today's slate has Afrika versus Hanwha Life. And I mentioned those playoff implications because those matter so much, in the last weeks of regular season, because, some of these teams, especially in the LCK, I mean, they like to give opportunities to, new and upcoming players that are either on the bench or have not played as much during the meat of the regular season. But now in the last weeks or so, I mean, there are some substitution risks, just as an overall picture of the roster construction. I mean, there is some substitution risk, even for the star players like Chovy for Hanwha Life, that we'll just have to be mindful of. And as Eric mentioned before, I usually stay up throughout the night when there's League of Legends that I can watch, because I'm a League of Legends fanatic. I've been following the game for a long time, so I'll be up late to post starters at least for the first LCK game, because that usually gets posted before the slate locks. So I'll post that in the Discord channel. So just be mindful of the substitution risk there. It's as a general rule in the last LCK week here this week. So let's go into the matchup between Afrika and Hanwha Life. I know Eric is in charge of like projections and everything in terms of raw points and everything. So I'll just handle the matchup analysis in terms of just based on the metrics and the eye test that I go by, when I play DFS. So Afrika versus Hanwha Life. Hanwha Life is not in the playoffs, and Afrika is in the playoffs, even though they are in the last spot for the playoffs, number 6 spot. They still have a chance to climb up on the standings and get a number 5 playoff spot. So Afrika has a lot more motivation compared to Hanwha Life. So I would give a little edge to Afrika there. And then in terms of the actual matchup, I mean, Hanwha Life has been so volatile. So I would, I just feel like Afrika has been much a better team. And I just feel like Hanwha Life is probably the worst team, in my opinion, or in the worst form amongst the 4 teams that are on the LCK slate. So I know a lot of people would like to play Hanwha Life because how they did in the spring split. And then there were a couple of weeks here and there, this split in the summer, where they had been performing well, but they're just in shambles and really bad form. And I feel like this is a perfect timing where they would give opportunities to those players that have not played much for Hanwha Life, because they're in the rebuilding process after missing out on the playoffs. So I'll definitely lean Afrika here, but this matchup is definitely the slowest matchup amongst the 2 matchups. I go by the combined kills per minute metric. If you guys haven't heard me talk about it, that is a very important metric that I go by to choose a long stack versus short stack. And obviously, that's just all based on probabilities and the statistics throughout the split. But I also look at the recent games, like, the games that happened in July. And I put a lot of importance in that because League of Legends changes a lot of, they call it metas. So obviously, depending on which meta your game is in, the team has to adjust to that and adopt to that. And then based on your gameplay and game strategy, you tend to play slower or faster based on how you want to play or your team wants to play. So in July games, these 2 teams, Afrika and Hanwha Life, had 1.34 combined kills per minute. Just as a reference, in the second LCK matchup that I'll talk about now, Sandbox versus KT, they have a combined kills per minute for July games of 1.47, and that's obviously higher than 1.34 for the first LCK matchup. So I would definitely get a long stack. If I wanted to build an optimal lineup, obviously I would get a long stack from the Sandbox versus KT. And like I said, I don't think I'll be playing any Hanwha Life, unfortunately. And I do think Hanwha Life, I'll go over the ownership projections later on as the last item on my list. But yeah, I feel like I'm not gonna play much Hanwha Life. I'm gonna play a lot of Africa because of that playoff motivation, and I feel like, frankly, they're a better team than Hanwha Life. And then in the second LCK matchup for Sandbox versus KT, I'm definitely gonna have exposure to both teams. I know Sandbox really on the LCK standings, they're in the first place. So I mean, they've been a good team, great team at times, and they've been in really good form lately. So they should be favored as as the Vegas odds indicate, minus I think 300 at one point, and then now it's down to minus 275. So I do think Sandbox. I do lean Sandbox will win because of the form that they've been in, and KT has been so volatile lately, but not as volatile as Hanwha Life has been. So that's why I'm gonna have exposure to both teams here for GPP purposes.
Hey,
But for cash, go ahead.
Can I interject for a second? So you said a lot of amazing things that I took a little bit of mental notes on. I wanted to ask you a couple of things. And this is going to be one of my questions. When you have a League of Legends situation where either one team doesn't care, or one team's not playing for much, or whatever it is, do you find that provides sloppier play, which might lead to more volatility and more points, or does it or I was going to ask the question more in context of the playoffs, right? When we got to the next slate, like what about a playoff LOL might differ from non-playoff LOL? Like, are teams less likely to open up the board and pardon my nomenclature, right? Are teams less likely to be too wild and as such? What about the particular situation here of teams not caring? Does that possibly make them higher upside, or their opponent even higher upside because they're not even going to care about defense, so to speak, or does it not matter all that much?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It definitely matters. There's so many factors to that, but that's a great question. Like for instance, Hanwha Life, like I said, has missed out on the playoffs, and let's say all the usual starters still start.
Yeah.
But since they missed the playoffs, I mean, they're more likely to participate, play more loosely. I mean, they like you said, I mean, it might increase the kill upside, not only for Hanwha Life themselves, but also for the opponent. But, I feel like it all depends on who you think, which team you think will dictate the pace. So given that Africa, has more to play for, and frankly, they're the better team, I feel like Africa will dictate the pace of the game. So I don't think it will matter too much, but I definitely think I mean, that's a good point that Hanwha has missed out on the playoffs, and I do think it will increase the kill upside for Africa here. So. But yeah, in terms of Sandbox versus KT, I mean, Sandbox is in the playoffs. KT is not in the playoffs. So, Sandbox has a lot more to play for. I didn't mention that. I should have mentioned that earlier. But it's the same scenario compared to the first LCK game in terms of the playoff motivation. But yeah, I mean, KT, but frankly, like I said, KT has been a better team and in better form than Hanwha Life, just comparing to underdogs. So I'll definitely have KT as one of my GPP plays, exposure to their players. But like I said, I mean, their KT, as you probably have seen lately, has been substituting a lot of players. I know their bottom lane has, the different AD carry and different support. So there's a chance that since they're not in the playoffs and they have nothing to play for, they may go back to the starters back from 2 weeks ago, so who knows what's going to happen. And it's the second LCK game, so we're not going to get the starter confirmation on that. Okay. So it's the risk, it's the inherent risk that you'll have to, just keep in mind when you play KT players. Now for Sandbox, the usual 5 starters have been playing. So, and I fully expect that, it's going to be the same 5. So, I'm not, worried about that aspect for Sandbox. And I fully believe that Sandbox will win. I know KT has a chance, but Sandbox, as the number 1 seed right now, has to win to maintain that spot. And obviously having a bye week in the playoffs is a very, very important aspect for them to make it to the World down the road. So I'll definitely have a lot of Sandbox on this play.
So then again, this is the type of question I always ask, Bobby, throughout all my DFS knowledge. So everything that you just said, right, makes a lot of sense. So the question is, how often does that happen relative to how much these guys are going to be owned, right? Because what you said certainly makes a lot of sense, and it seems like a narrative that people are going to be jumping on, or it makes a lot of sense. So does Live Sandbox, for example, outscore XYZ, right? Or Alfreca enough to not even Alfreca, because you could play them both, right? So the question is let's say you wanted to take a shot with, say, Hanwha Life or KT or whatever. Like, how does their ownership? And I think you did mention you were going to get to that. If all these Live Sandbox guys were 100% owned, you wouldn't play them. Obviously, if they were 2% owned, you'd play them all. So where is that? And this is, you get this right, you win the Nobel Prize, right? But is always the question. Like, what level ownership do you imagine is fair given everything that you just said?
Well, I do think ownership goes by like this. I think Sandbox, Africa, Hanwha Life, and KT. So I think, like I said, by playing KT as a GPP play, which I'll probably do, I think that, obviously gives you automatic leverage on your own. I mean, on a 2-game slate, obviously, as you know, you don't have to be that different. I just feel like you have to be, you have to, vary your lineup a little bit. But I feel like just given the playoff implications and given how these teams, what kind of form that they've been in, I feel like I'm pretty confident, that Africa will be Hanwha Life here, even though the odds don't indicate that because KT is a bigger underdog. But yeah, in terms of the ownership leverage, I feel like playing KT will be very interesting. But in terms of ownership for Sandbox, yeah, I feel like Sandbox is, ownership is going to be through the roof. So maybe using a short stack of Sandbox and then hoping that Africa's kill upside goes up, like you said, just based on your point, Eric, about Hanwha Life having nothing to play for. And then maybe it will just end up being like a Clown Fiesta where there's just going to be a lot of kills. That could happen. So obviously having a long stack of Africa will give you that leverage as well.
So you would say that, I guess to summarize, that if you had to take a stab at one of the underdogs, it would be KT over if you had to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess let's talk about the games that matter. Shows how stupid I knew. I thought they were both in the playoff. So the LPL one, that is Suning and LNG and WE versus OMG. So are they playing 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5?
They're best of 5, and it's over 2 days. It's over 2 days. So one series will be tomorrow morning, and then another series will be Friday morning.
So let me ask you this, and then you just get right into it. Do you feel as though, I guess that has to be the case, that the more games that go on, just the law of large numbers, right, the more likely it is for the favorites to win, I suppose. I guess that seems to make a lot of sense. And also, I guess the same question as far as the playoffs go, I guess you wouldn't have that much, I would imagine, not that much substitution risk in playoffs, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll be more likely if a guy's struggling because it's the playoff to kick him out of there. What's your thoughts on that? And then let's, just start talking about the slate.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. First of all, yeah, these are best of 5 series. And as you know, like in the NBA, best of 7, typically the better team wins. So, just get based on the metric. It is more than likely, the metrics are a much better indicator as to who's going to win in that best of 5 series. So I put a lot more emphasis on just analyzing the metrics and the projections and analytics and all that for the playoff series. So given that, I have gone through all the metrics, and the first matchup, LNG versus Suning, for which we have the starters confirmed.
Okay.
And I have posted that in the Discord channel as well, so everybody can see it. And then for the starting lineups for the second LPL game, which, like I said, will happen Friday morning, we'll not get the starter confirmation until tomorrow morning at like 11 a.m. Eastern time. So, I know that DraftKings or FanDuel does not have late swaps for League of Legends DFS, unfortunately. So we're not going to have a chance to do that. So, I'll go through the substitution risk and more, most likely substitution risks that might happen in the second LPL game. But let's go over the first LPL matchup, LNG versus Suning. Suning is the favorite at minus 260 last time I checked. And I think they are deservingly the favorite just based on the recent forms for both teams. LNG started off hot. They were in the first place in the LPL about at the midpoint of the season. But now coming to the playoff time, LNG has been really, they're just the middle of the pack playoff team. And then Suning has been on the uprise where they have been playing well, and even though they've been playing pretty slow, which I'll go into about analyzing the kill upside for these two matchups. But Suning, even though they've been playing slower, they've been playing better than LNG, frankly, just based on the metrics. The metrics support that, and then my eye test support that as well. In terms of the actual kill upside, like I said, both LNG and Suning tend to play on the slower side. So this is very, very clear cut kill upside comparison between these two matchups. The other LPL matchup between Team WE and OMG will most likely produce more kills because those two teams play really fast compared to LNG and Suning. So I would definitely use a long stack from the Team WE or OMG. That's more likely, especially in a best of 5 series. Like I said, the metrics are a better indicator in a best of 5 series. So I would keep that in mind. But yeah, in terms of the prediction for Suning and LNG, I would definitely have to favor Suning, like I said, based on the metrics and based on the recent form. I know Suning individually has better players, in my opinion. I know Ben is going up against, I think, Ale, I believe, and LNG. So, that's going to be a wash. But, as you see on their screens, Ben has been lights out, when Suning wins. And then I know 2 carries for Suning have been Ben in top, and then in the AD carry position for Juan Feng. So, if you think Suning will win, those 2 people will probably, have to be in your lineup, in my opinion. I know sometimes, obviously, you can make variations to your lineups, but I feel like for the optimal lineup, those 2 people, you have to be in your lineup, in my opinion.
You know who always shows, it's so funny, whenever I run my lineups, I always just instinctively, I know I promised I would shut up, but I can't help myself, is I always kind of like eliminate the lineups that get built with supports in the captain. But the 2 guys that always seem to I always seem to get to when I run lineups is the guy from Suning, Ohm, and yeah, and the other guy, I think the guy's not in, it's Ming or something like that. So those are the only 2 guys I ever really get to, and I X them out anyway. And sometimes sometimes it happens. So I have a question. Once you get into the WE OMG thing, which I think you're going to say is the higher kill upside matchup, is the fact that there are 5 games enough? Is there enough of a difference between these 2 games where you can get away with game stacking one of them, or is that usually not advisable?
Great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I was going to go over that. Yeah, so Team WE versus OMG. Yeah, I've seen a game stack win, especially in the playoffs, more often than the regular season best of 3 series, because these are playoffs, best of 5 series, and game stacks definitely could happen and can win you GPPs for sure. So I would definitely think about game stacking Team WE versus OMG. There is a chance that like LNG or Suning, let's say Suning beats LNG 3-0 in the series best of 5. And then Suning ends up scoring, let's say, like 15 kills in each of those 3 wins. And then it turns out WE and OMG goes to all the way to best of 5, game 5. And then each of those 5 games they play could be like 20-20, 20-25. And obviously in that scenario, yeah, the game stack will win. more than likely. So, I just feel like it is more viable, like you said, in a best of 5 series. So I would definitely keep that in mind, like you said, Eric. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely not game stack LNG versus Suning, because more than likely one of those or two of those 5 games, if they even if they go to game 5 games, I mean, more than likely it's going to be a low scoring match there. So, but yeah, I can go over the second LPL matchup because I am emphasizing the fact that this is going to be the DFS productive matchup. But I just feel like, just based on the metrics, I know, like, for example, Team WE controls the jungle. I don't know if some of you guys told me that you guys watched the games or started watching the games now. And as you guys know, the jungling position is probably one of the most important positions just to win the game for your team. So I look at, and I put a lot of emphasis on the jungling control percentage, which is available on some, like League of Legends statistics websites. So I look at that, and then it indicates that Team WE has plus 3.7% advantage over OMG. And then just for July games, they have plus 5.0%, which so obviously shows the increase and more domination for Team WE over the last month or so over OMG. So that tells me, and then also just based on the eye test, OMG is so volatile, like probably almost as volatile as, let's say, Invictus Gaming, which I'm sure has frustrated a lot of people throughout the season. But yeah, so I definitely have to favor Team WE. And kind of like what I talked about the LCK matchup earlier, I'm not going to play much Hanwha Life. I'm not going to play much OMG on this 2-game LPL slate, because I feel like I'm pretty confident that Team WE will likely win here. I know that Team WE and Suning kind of share about the same odds of winning based on the Vegas odds, but I'm more confident that Team WE will win in their respective matchup compared to Suning and theirs. So I'll definitely have a lot of.
Yeah, what I'm finding is that DraftKings is making life a little bit too easy. Like you're able to play these 4-3s with both favorites way too often, I think. But anyway, you could play like WE, all the WE LNG, Suning that you want. Of course, that you're going to suffer from leverage issues if you do that. But let me ask you a question. So let's just say that, again, just to get different, you wanted to play again one of the underdogs. Like if I were analyzing it in terms of, say, MMA or even basketball, I would say, well, this WEOMG matchup is rates to be the higher kill. If I'm going to play an underdog, I would presume that if OMG wins, they're going to probably have to get a lot of kills to do it. So I'd be more inclined, this is my instinct, to play them as opposed to trying to, overcome a slow matchup, you know what I mean, and play LNG. Would you agree with that? Or is it one of those things where OMG just, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Like that's all factored into the price or whatever,
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And you definitely have a point because like you said, I mean, it's a definitely more bloody matchup projected to be. So yeah, I mean, if anything, OMG makes a better GPP play in terms of the kill upside. If you think OMG has a shot to win, obviously, and then compared to LNG's chances, if you think they're similar, I would definitely have to favor OMG. If you are considering OMG and LNG as an underdog play, yeah, I mean, in MME, I mean, on a 2-game slate, really any team is viable. Anything can happen, but in the playoffs like this, best of 5, like I said,
Right.
More than likely a better team wins, just like in the NBA, best of 7 and all that. So, yeah, but like I said, if OMG wins, they're gonna be more than likely, probably most likely to have the most kills. You definitely want to have a long stack if you are playing OMG. I would definitely long stack OMG players, and I would even differentiate, not having an AD carry captain. I know if you play OMG long stack, you'll probably be able to stack anything you want. So really, I would differentiate.
It's great that you brought that up, because then we'll get into some more of this in like later videos. This idea of that you can even play the chalky teams if you get different with respect to your roster constructions, and I've seen it happen a million times. I've been I post in my in the Discord when I win these GPPs, and it's almost always, it's never like taking some wild underdog. It really isn't. It's just somehow having like a captain team support as a 3-man stack, and then the long stack come from the other 4 or something. And right. and that's one thing you can do is you can not get so regimented about putting the AD carry or the jungler or whatever in the captain. And things happen in League of Legends, and you can get there, and this is my opinion, you can get there in GPPs without necessarily playing 2 10-1 underdogs. And I've just look, I've only been playing this year, but I see it happen. I see it happen a lot, and I've seen it happen the other way. I've seen me having like 2 teams that both sweep, they both go 2-0, and yet I don't cash. I'm like, what the hell, And because sometimes construction just kind of goes wonky a little bit, and you get Zoom or somebody has a huge score in the top position.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, you're dead. So it's so and that's one of the things I find so interesting about this sport from DFS perspective is that even though most slates rate to have like multi-way ties or whatever, a lot of them, you get unique winners just so much more often than you think. And if you think about that, in a 2-game slate with 6 positions, and really only 4 of them have a chance to be in the captain, or maybe even 5. The fact that you even get any unique lineups is like almost amazing, but it happens. So that's one of the things that intrigues me about the sport.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And frankly, I mean, that's why, you've been succeeding in League of Legends DFS, Eric, because I mean, most people don't have that mindset. I feel like, you don't have to like drastically play the biggest underdog. I mean, you just have to really, just based on who you think will win, and then just build a bunch of, different, variations of that lineup using those 2 teams you think will win, and then also just have a leverage team that you think, could upset potentially. So you just have to differentiate a little bit. I know a lot of people, like I said, like to play AD carry captain, but especially this meta in League of Legends, top laners have been producing a lot more points compared to, let's say, if you guys had played League of Legends DFS like last year when COVID hit in March. I mean, and then League of Legends was like, frankly, the only sport, that was available for the time being, available to play. And then a lot of people played AD carry back then. But now, I mean, in this different meta for the game, there have been a lot more distributed points for the top laners, for junglers, and for even the mid laners. Obviously, AD carries and mid laners are popular, but I know if you had a choice, I know like some people don't like to leave salary on the table, when you build these constructions. But I mean, for example, OMG, if you are playing OMG, like you said, I know they're going to score well. And I know that Cream in the mid lane have scored better than Able in so many games this split. So obviously, that's one way to differentiate yourself. But yeah, I mean, when I build rosters, I also look at not only look at the kill participation percentage, but also the kill share percentages for each of these players. And then also look at, how the individuals perform in the laning phase, because that tells me that how much resources that these teams put in those individual players throughout the game. So obviously, if you see like Able and Cream get like 50% of the gold for the team, then they expect them, them to, perform well and get a lot of kills and carry that team to success and to wins. So obviously, those are, really good 3 key indicators, when you are building, trying to choose players. And then, if you are trying to gain some edge, there's another key metric that I use is that there are some websites that provide, that show how many fantasy points that each team gives up per position. So like, let's say, LNG versus Suning, if LNG, you can see that LNG gives up the most points to the opposing team's mid laner, for example. I haven't delved into that yet, but I'll post that in Discord. So that kind of sometimes gives me the edge if I'm struggling to choose, between 2 mid laners, like when captaining one of the mid laners, or 2 AD carries if I need to, stack mid laners or stack AD carries, for the roster construction. So those are some of the tools that or metrics that I, go by when I, project how the players will play and score. So those are, some of the tools for roster construction that I use.
Well, I'll tell you, off to an awesome start here with these guys, and I promise you that the guys in the Discord who I think are in the Discord that they're going to be asking, and they're going to be asking, hey, how do we, about the kill about those various metrics. I think the people that we have are going to be interested in that. So
Sure.
We'll follow their lead, and I am glad that I was able to do it for this one. And again, I think for future ones, it's probably better, as for my timing too, for you to just do it in this way. You want to share your screen, you want to share some stuff, you have a little more leeway to do whatever. As long as, are you good with how to record and upload?
Yeah, well, we'll have to talk about that as to how what website that I need to use. But one thing before we we'll talk later. But one thing before we go to that procedural stuff, administrative stuff, I think one thing I forgot to mention is that Team WE, the mid laner, I know that Shanks will most likely start.
Oh.
But Mole is always on the bench.
Okay.
Over his shoulder.
Okay.
So, we'll see what happens there. There's a little bit of inherent substitution risk there.
Okay.
So I feel like if OMG, like you said, if somehow they, pulls off an upset in game 1 or 2, there is a chance that Mole can come in and, sub in. So there's a little bit of risk there. And then for OMG, it's the same 5 players have been playing. So I only mentioned these for the second LPL matchup because we are not going to get confirmation on these starters for these 2, but more than likely, the same starters who started their last games respectively will start. But the only hesitation is in that mid lane for Team WE. So.
All right, Chan, I'm going to call you offline, but thank you so much, and good luck, everybody.
Good luck. Thanks, Eric.